Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to Glory Days from Anfield Index Pro. I'm Trev Downey, and as usual, I am indeed podcasting to you from my field here in beautiful rural Ireland. And my guest this evening is Mr. Karl Coppack, late of this manner and joyfully returned to do a chat. We're going to do a chat, and the chat's going to be about the 1989 FA Cup final win that Liverpool had over Everton. An incredibly important game. I have a lot to say about it. No doubt Karl has too, but let's start by welcoming Karl back to your ears. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm all right. Yeah. It's we were just been talking on the red button there that no one's allowed to hear, the secret recording, and we were saying, like, we don't really have much of an outline for this show because it pretty much writes itself. I've literally done no research about this game because it was yesterday. It's exactly what it seems like. I know. I remember everything about it. I remember the scarf I was wearing. I remember everything about this game.
What I love about
we'll come to, and it's everything about it.
What I love about it is that thing that maybe will become a little bit more clear late in a little while. That if you are a man of a certain age, see what I did there, Karl? Then you will absolutely have this imprinted on your soul because. Look, I've been on the record in several shows over the years. People ask, what's the trophy that was the most important to you as a Liverpool fan? And I can say without hesitation that this one is right up there because it felt as if it had to be won because of the context in which the final was occurring and because of the immediacy of the tragedy and suffering that had just occurred. And it just felt, Karl, like, I know it's only football, man, but we're a football show first and foremost. And it really felt like it had to be won. Do you know that kind of way? I found the pressure, even just as a fan, was intolerable.
Yeah, it was, bearing in mind that people were still dying at that point. I think there was talk in the press, I can't remember the exact number, but of doing it for the 95, which seemed two schools of thought really on it. You either were so devastated by Hillsborough, you said, okay, no, pull out the competition, we don't want to do it, we don't do it, or you want to think, no, actually, do you know what, we want to do it, we want to win it for. And yeah, I think sometimes it can be seen to be a bit sort of trite, so let's do it for the people who died, etc. But I think that there was basically very parallel views, and I was on both sides. So I was sort of thinking, no, but I was missing football, and I felt guilty for missing football at the same time. Obviously, and we wanted Everton in the final. We wanted this to be a personal City thing. It's us against them, and because obviously they lost people as well. The families covers both clubs, and we wanted it to be like an internal meeting. To sort the league out and to sort the FA Cup out. It looked like we were going to win the league as well. That didn't happen, but there was a sense of because it was the FA Cup and we hadn't. And people always think about this, think about the dominant sides of the 70s and 80s. We didn't win the FA Cup for 12 years, which was 74 to 86, and to be obviously we were in the final the year before against Wimbledon, and that didn't go to plan either. I was at that game as well. And 89 was just sort of, well, we sort of have to win this one, but I'm just glad it was against them. I can't remember who they played in this. I mean, was it Norwich? I have to look, actually, I can't remember. So that was just, it was just a huge occasion, because of course the FA Cup meant more then, it just did.
Yeah, it did. It just did. And I tried to have this conversation when we were talking about 86 and 92, and how even in 92, the FA Cup was still very much a thing. And we did a big chat about, when we were chatting about the 86 one, about the build up, and enjoying that, and enjoying the whole the extended television package that was on offer. And it really was a sort of a whole kind of almost festival thing, that kind of an atmosphere to it, in terms of the interest that everybody had, the importance that was given to it as a trophy. And as well, bear in mind that for English clubs, there were only the domestic competitions that were available at that time anyway. So it was huge, no two ways about it. And look, you're a man of the city, and it would be pretty important. You've already sort of leaned into this. It would be pretty important that we just do acknowledge very much. It's all right for me saying it felt like it was really, really a must win because of what had happened. But, just for the sake of trying to sort of embrace this game in its totality, because to me, it felt like more than a game. And the fact that Everton were in it, it was really interesting. The second time in 3 years. Yeah. And I don't know, Karl, right? And you can speak to this a lot better than I can. But it really did feel genuine to see the red and blue together. It did feel genuine that there was a sort of a togetherness, that the whole chance of Merseyside and all that stuff. It did feel that that was very much a real thing. You were on the ground, as it were. Am I right in saying that, or was that just a fanciful thing that I was picking up via the TV?
Well, to demonstrate that point perfectly, not only was I there, I was in the Everton end. I was wearing a red scarf. My red double winner's scarf from '86. I was wearing it in their end, because I got a ticket by an unusual route, shall we say? Not a tout, it's just someone who I have no idea who gave me the ticket, but it came through a lad I was at uni with, because that was my first year at uni, and. Yeah, and I've told the story on numerous occasions, so I'm sorry if you've heard me bang on about this game, because I love this game so much. But it was a friendly derby, in as much as the 9-foot grok that came up to me before the game looked at my scarf and said, "You're okay, but if you celebrate, I'll kill you." Then he actually used those words. Actually, he used something else. He used more violent imagery than that. And I said, "Oh, come on, I'm in your end. I'm not going to go mad. I'm going to respect it." And of course, we scored in 4 minutes. I went nuts, and on my own. And to say it was a friendly game between the two of us, the friendliest thing that happened, he came over to me and shook my hand and called me things I can't say live on. But he shook my hand, because I think I did try and bring it in a bit, but not much, to be honest with you. I was convinced it'd be a 0-0 anyway, so. And it'll be penalties or something like that. But sorry, a replay would have been in those days. But no, so it was friendly. I mean, there was no problem with it being in their end. I remember the minute silence more than I can remember any other minute silence, because they were rare in those days. And the only thing you could hear was the helicopters above us, because of course you can't ask them to be quiet. And that was lots of tears. There were lots of tears in the stands that day.
Yeah,
not like Mediterranean, but just general sort of deep breaths going on, and a big round of applause when it all finished. Yeah, genuinely, it was like very emotional, incredibly emotional.
It was a almost cathartic in some ways, obviously in very small ways, to be able to get the game played and to have people with something to focus on, and the fact that it was Liverpool and Everton, it couldn't have been more perfect. And the game itself, Karl, I mean, just so people understand, Liverpool win 3-2 after extra time. It is a really, really interesting match. I want to just frame it up for folks so they have a clue what we're talking about. You're looking at a Liverpool lineup that went as follows: Bruce Grobbelaar, Gary Ablett, Steve Staunton, Stevie Nicol, and Alan Hansen. You had Ronnie Whelan, Peter Beardsley, Ray Houghton, and Steve McMahon, and you had Barnes, Beardsley, Aldridge. Incredible lineup from Liverpool. And the opposition on the day, Neville Southall in goal, who I will hold my hands up and say remains probably the best goalkeeper I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Neil McDonald, Pat Vanden Hauwe, Kevin Ratcliffe, Dave Watson, Paul Bracewell, Pat Nevin, Trevor Stephen, Graham Sharp, Tony Cotty, Kevin Sheedy. A hell of a lot of good footballers in that team.
It's not as strong as it was, that Everton side, and more importantly, they've got Colin Harvey on the bench, not Howard Kendall.
Yes.
So they were on the turn a bit there, but I mean, Graham Sharp and Tony Cotty, Kevin Sheedy, Trevor Stephen, and Paul Bracewell was a phenomenal footballer. Phenomenal. And, you know, I mean, you might want to look at the fullbacks a bit. I can't remember how they did on the day, but the centre halves, you know, Dave Watson and Kevin Ratcliffe, they were league winners. You know, they were league winners.
They were league winners for the very definition of solid citizens. Obviously, Vanden Hauwe was a kind of law unto himself. Neil McDonald, whatever. You're right. It was a weakened side by comparison with, say, their league-winning team or the 85-86 Cup final team. But still, nevertheless, a tremendous amount of good quality players. They have one substitute that they bring in the form of Stuart McCall, who most of us were, you know, not exactly that worried about, who ends up having a massive... I
wasn't losing sleep over Stuart McCall.
No, nobody was. It was the kind of it's only Ray Parlour moment, and then oops. Yeah. You know, so yeah, we will go through the details of the match because they're very much how we're going to sort of tell our tale here. But again, I'm just very, very interested in context as well. So you got to go, you're in the Everton end, you're fully expecting a kind of a dour 0-0, some sort of a very, very tight affair. Now, I'm sure, you know, I know you said it's ingrained on your memory. It is on mine as well. And I had, at this stage, already developed a crippling amount of superstitions and rituals that had to be observed when watching my team. And I swear to God, man, I was like sort of a basket case. It was soon after this that I gave up superstition entirely because I realized how absolutely imbecilic it was making me. But I was a slave to them. So I was observing all of those things at home, whatever happened to be, you know, the TV at a certain, you know, at a certain twist, or the chair in exactly the right place. And I had this little thing where I used to kind of stick my left thumb slightly up. I mean, imbecilic stuff. And yet I was a slave to these things. They were all in full flight. This was a very, very, very dramatic game, a very tense match. A lot of drama, and you know, I can only imagine that. Of course, it's exacerbated when you're in the venue itself. So just to kind of go through it and your memories of it, if you were to pick out one memory, is it the Rushy goal that wins it? Because for me, actually, an awful lot of my memories centered on opportunities where we could have run away with it. Johnny Aldridge could have had a hat trick. I think Peter Beardsley has two decent attempts. One particularly where he cuts in and he's on his own and he drags it wide of the near post on his left foot. And I'm going, how did you do that? Because he was such a magician of a footballer. So if there's one particular moment in the whole game that stands out for you, I'll be honest, mine is, are you fucking serious when Stuart McCall did that equaliser to make it 2-2? Yeah. I did not think that was going to be a thing that could possibly happen. 89 minutes, he takes the ball in his chest and sort of soft volleys it inside Brucey's far left-hand post, and you're going, and it's dipping, and it doesn't feel like it's a powerful shot, but it's just too much. It's too far away from Brucey.
It took an hour to go in around the
Yeah. So that is, for all the joy in the match, that is probably the standout moment for me, because I was like, oh my God, are you serious? So for you in the ground, there's probably other things, other factors influencing you. What was the big standout moment for you that you know when you think 1989 Cup final? Well, this is the moment you remember.
It's John Aldridge's goal.
The first one, right? Yeah.
Because it's too early. I mean, and you can get that in a game. I always think, in terms of that game under Rafa in 2008-9 at Chelsea, where Alonso scores from the deflected shot. We haven't beaten them at Stamford Bridge under Mourinho at any point. I remember thinking, we have to win this game if we're going to win the league. We have to show we're serious. And we score that goal. And the entire away end went nuts. And then the entire away end put their heads in their hands thinking, we've got 80 minutes to hold out. Because you went up for a second. And again, thinking 0-0, you know, they're always tight games, derbies anyway, regardless of format, etc. They were then anyway. And we scored in 4 minutes. And you're thinking, this isn't the side of 88, you know, and they're both tired and full of beans because they haven't played. Let's not forget, they haven't played for weeks because of the disaster. And it was really mixed. So obviously, it went nuts. And then, firstly, I concentrated on the goal. Then I concentrated on not being torn to shreds by some bloke who was blocking out the sun in front of me. And then hanging on. And then the next 86 minutes or so were just took about 4 or 5 hours. I'd say. Honestly, it was like an American football match after a while. So,
and it did feel
now, or 12 minutes, you know, one of those sort of games.
It did feel that. It did kind of feel like that it might happen because there was chance after chance, like I said, for Liverpool. But that opening goal, I mean, if you haven't seen these goals, folks, just go get onto YouTube and watch a little package of the goals, because that opening goal, I mean, there's a lovely little narrative going through here anyway, because Johnny Aldridge starts with Ian Rush, who's our greatest striker ever, and on form and on ability would be in any team in the world. He's come back from Juventus after what was a sort of I wouldn't say a failed experiment, but it didn't take with him. He was clearly good enough, but it wasn't for him. Yeah. He's back with Liverpool. We couldn't be happier. We've got Rush and Aldridge, but to see Johnny Aldridge starting and to see Johnny Aldridge do that, and it's a lovely goal, Karl. It's such a lovely goal. I think it's Nickel who helps it forward. Then Steve McMahon centers the ball. It's a kind of a forward center ball, a la Trent Alexander-Arnold, if we're being perfectly honest. And the way Aldo finishes it on the rise, the ball's bouncing up, and he wraps his right foot around it and cushions it into the far top corner. I mean, it's a super finish. The kind of finish that he does not get enough credit for being as good as he was. He was brilliant.
Yeah. No, and it's a very non-John Aldridge goal, because he's not, and he's in the box when he hits it, you know, but he's normally closer than that. And you know, which is really, you know, you expect like a pull back, you know, slot in the corner, that sort of thing. It's a proper finish. It's a proper professional football, and that sounds mad, you know, because he's a professional football. He's got 8 billion goals in his career, but I don't think he scored many more cushioned ones than that. It's just beautiful to watch, and it's just because it was so early, so that was the main thing for it, and it just put it just changed everything. I know, you know, there was this thing on people when commentators always say the game needs a goal. The game always needs a goal. It's the point of it. I don't think he has another shot on target in the game. I can remember. But, yeah, I think I love that goal just so much, just because it wasn't a classic, you know, Aldridge finish, but it just changed everything because it couldn't be caged. They had to come out and play, and our sides, the 89 side, you know, obviously we very nearly won the double. We won the FA Cup, spoiler, but it's not the 88 vintage. It's not quite that level. So, you know, it's such a big statement to score in the 4th minute. A goal in the derby just changes everything, either way.
You know, I'm glad you brought up the double, because that's where I was going next. And this is another thing about understanding this game in context, because it's a little bit weird, because the FA Cup final is being played before the last day of the league.
So the FA Cup, 2 games to go in the next 4 days.
Exactly. We had West Ham and we had Arsenal. And, for context, again, those of you who are maybe comparatively recent fans or just aren't 100% sure in the details. So the FA Cup final is played on the 20th of May.
Yeah.
And then on the 23rd, we go and we absolutely batter West Ham 5-1 to leave ourselves in a situation where we just basically needed to not lose against Arsenal at home.
Not lose 2-0, yeah.
Not lose 2-0, sorry.
We could lose 1-0.
We could have lost 1-0 and we still win the league on the 26th of May, which is a kind of FA Cup sounding date. So there's a weird kind of switcheroo going on. And again, for completism, on a night where I can rarely remember feeling as crushed, the famous "It's all up for grabs now" commentary from Brian Moore and Michael Thomas scores to make it 2-0. And rob us of the double. It was spirit crushing, but to reverse back to the FA Cup final, to put ourselves in the position of winning a second double. And Karl, you will remember, I mean, it got a little bit not cheapened, but it got a little bit almost blasé because of United's outrageous period of success.
Yeah,
and doubles they became a thing that just people did with comparative regularity, but they didn't back when we won in '86. I think it was one any year there was a one in it. Spurs won one in '71 and 61, wasn't it? Arsenal won one in '71. That was it. That was how it went, and we do it in '86, and we were lining up to do it again in '89. This is why there's so much on this. So that's the context. Back to the game itself, and we've talked now about this. You talked about this interminable period where we fashioned chance after chance after chance. Like I said, Beardsley had 2 great chances. Johnny Aldridge could have scored 2. He's not there. He's not the only one. Someone else, at least 1 or 2 other people had opportunities.
Well, Barnes went on a big major run, didn't he? And just put it just wide.
Yes, he did. He drags his shot across the face.
They couldn't handle our left-hand side at all. I remember that.
No,
they couldn't handle Barnes and Nickel. They couldn't handle it at all.
And so we get ourselves to the sharp end where we're almost over the line with the first part of the League and Cup double, which would mean so much to us. And on 89 poxy minutes, Stuart McCall does that thing, and it's so scrappy, Karl. I mean, it felt awful.
I've got to think. Remember that the Liverpool defenders went mad. Like he pushed somebody or something. So whether that would happen today, I don't know. But from what I can remember, I remember thinking there was an infringement somewhere in it. But again, let's remember I'm in the Everton end, so I'm raising a finger to the referee saying, "Excuse me, is that?" I'm in the wrong place in the world to do that. I think you'll find that's actually a foul on. I can't remember who the defender would be at that point. Yeah, probably would have been handsome, wouldn't it? And it's just typical. Because we hadn't put the chances away, and they're just going to do that, because they're Everton and they're but it was good. I've got to go back to one thing actually, Trev. When you say we could have been 2 doubles, it should have been 3.
It should have been 3, man.
Because the 86 side won the double, wouldn't have got onto the same pitch as the 88 side, and they didn't.
They didn't win it, and it was ironically a Johnny Aldridge penalty miss. In the final against Wimbledon. People can't get their heads around.
I was at that game as well, and you couldn't have bought a bet on Aldridge to score that penalty in the end. I was in. Everyone says he misses this one.
We battered the league in the previous season with the best team that most of us have ever seen, including that 5-0 win over Forest that we were chatting about quite recently in the context of the most recent FA Cup game for Liverpool. And the FA Cup final remains one of those absolutely head-scratching moments, how we lose that. Laurie Sanchez, I think, gets the winner for them, unless I'm mistaken.
I believe he's mentioned it since.
He may have mentioned it a time or two. And so, as you rightly say, that's a double. And these things, remember, like hen's teeth, snatched away from our grasp. But now we're about to get the first part of it over the line again. Stuart McCall's scrappy goal. And to be fair, people cocking an eyebrow or two in the direction of Bruce Grobbelaar because, it's a scrappy goal. And by the time McCall sort of leans in and scuffs it, a finish over the line. It's incredibly messy. Then we're not happy with that. We have Ian Rush on the field because John Aldridge had gone off with the game looking safe. And you can recall for us, if you would, Karl, the glory of Rushy's first of his two.
It's the turn. I mean, if you want to look at a more contemporary similarity, it would be Sadie Armand against Bayern Munich, where he basically just gets his body in front of the defender and the goalkeeper and just pivots and takes them both out at the same time. And again, not really an Ian Rush goal. Ian Rush is more of a sort of one-on-one slot it or header or something like that. It's a fantastic finish, and it's against his mate as well, which is something. They're both Welsh internationals. Yeah, as is Van den Houw, of course. And it's just that was that, and it had just the fact that it was him, and he'd been away for a year, and he broke all our hearts when he went in '87, and he's back, and now he's scoring the winner in the FA Cup against Everton. I mean, for God's sake, man, he writes your scripts. Yeah. Do you want to come back and win the FA Cup in the last minute? Well, he can't actually. Because Stuart McCall's not finished yet. Incidentally, I think, is this the only final where 4 goals are scored by substitutes?
Oh, I think it's got to be.
Because McCall was a substitute as well. He didn't come on until about an hour or something like that. Yeah,
it's got to be. It's got to be. That how could that stat be beaten? But it's the way that he rolls Ratcliffe with that turn. It's so fantastic.
And who is his best mate?
Yeah, and to dispatch that finish in the way that he did is just absolutely outrageous. And you were up. And by the way, again, for not trivia, but for sideline details fans, because that's me and that's Karl. Kenny's on the sideline there, still looking like he could step out onto the pitch and play. I think he makes his last ever appearance in 1990, unless I'm mistaken. He had
last game of the season against Derby.
Last game of the season, he trundled out. But he had made 2 appearances, I think, in 88, 89. It was just so tantalizing for me as the absolute fanboy that he was still on the books. And, the match coat, Karl, is just... It's unparalleled in match day attire for me. It's that match coat that Kenny wore. Yeah, it was a slightly different version to the one from 85, 86 and the one from 86, 87. They all had different little color combos, but they were just ridiculous. And in this sweltering heat, he's there wrapped up in his big padded match coat, and the celebrations. I mean, probably the most iconic celebration, one of the best pictures I've ever had ever on my room wall is a picture of Kenny celebrating all those goals. The 2 hands.
Two hands in the air, facing the crowd,
facing the crowd, dude. That's as beautiful as it gets for me. It's perfection.
Yeah.
But as you say, Rushy thinks he's done it, but no, he hasn't bloody done it, because as previously described, Mr. McCall is not quite finished yet. And like we said, it's an outrageous hit by the kid on 102 minutes. The ball is headed out. I think it might be Hansen who gets his nod to it. McCall's sort of lurking on the edge of the box. You would say lurking with intent, but he shouldn't have a chance.
No.
He chests it down. It's not even like one of those deliberate chests. It chests it down. It just sort of falls onto his foot, and he helps it on. It's not even a particularly... He doesn't even really strike it, if you understand.
No, it's a sand wedge, if anything.
Yes.
Do you know what it is? It's a Jordan Henderson deep cross. It's that sort of ball, something like, just with the instep mid-air.
Yeah, he pushes it into the corner of the goal on the volley. And you're just going, like I said... my little heart was breaking. I was like, I'm not able for this. This is too much. Far too much pressure. Have I done my superstitions wrong, is what I'm wondering at this stage. But there is a moment of joy to come. And, you talked about the kind of goal that Ian Rush scores. And as Johnny Barnes is breaking down the left flank in that way that only Johnny Barnes could back in those days, a minute after McCall does what he does, let's remember that. It's only a minute afterwards. Johnny's breaking down the left-hand side. He puts over one of those perfectly shaped Johnny Barnes crosses. And, people forget how good that man was. But Ian Rush, to use the kind of phrase, stoops to conquer, because that is a rushy goal. The ball is kind of behind him.
His body shape's mad. I always think
body shape's mad.
It looks like a fish that's just been drawn out of water. That sort of slightly...
Yes.
Not quite supine, but not far off it. It's like he's lying flat, and it just sort of lets it just hit the top of his head or something.
His neck is arched kind of back, so that he can get his forehead to the ball. As you say, his knees are way in front of his body. He's leaning back. He's twisted himself into a really strange contortion in the way that only a poacher of goals can, so that he can make contact with the correct part of his body. And by the way, then he has to angle the header. It's not enough just to make contact. He angles that header inside the right-hand post as he's facing it. It's an outrageous goal, and we do hang on. And actually, unless I'm mistaken, I think Ray Houghton could have wrapped it up.
That rings a
but
bell,
for an outrageous save by Neville Southall, who again...
That's the thing about the Rush goal. I love goals where they trickle in, but he's basically said, I'm going to put it in the one place you can't get it. And by the way, look who's in goal.
Yes.
That's not some rube there. That's just, that is the best goalkeeper in the league. And he's definitely the best goalkeeper on the pitch, but I won't go into that. But
best not.
And it's just a case of I know you just can't reach that, and if I've got to do that and it looks a bit silly, I'm more, if I power it in, you'll save it. But if I just do that, and so he went from scoring the goal in the FA Cup final to beat Everton to doing it twice. And it is so important that it came straight after McCall's goal, because I'm thinking about the replay at that point. I'm thinking, I've got to come back and do all this again. And we're going to get a ticket. And as I said, my man came from an unusual source. Yeah. And maybe I'll get in the Liverpool end this time. Is that bloke going to kill? It's all still going on in my head at the time. And it was hot, by the way, as well. It was really hot.
Yeah.
God knows why I had a scarf on. I mean, well, these were the scarf years, so...
They were a scarf regardless years.
But Kenny had a coat on, for God's sake.
Well, that's it. Kenny's wearing a padded match coat. You can suffer through a scarf, And so I'm now. Obviously, the trophy looks fantastic. Ronnie Whelan's the captain that year.
Yeah.
We should have mentioned, perhaps just for novelty's sake, that Barry Venison came on for Steve Staunton at one point in the game. And people who aren't 100% familiar with Barry Venison, I recommend looking at Barry for various reasons. He was an underrated footballer. I quite like Barry Venison. I thought he did a good job for us when he played. But I'll tell you what, Barry's haircut was a treat. It was an absolute treat. And just go and look up Barry Venison just for the haircut itself. Steve McMahon always aspired to have Barry Venison's haircut, but never quite managed it.
He was losing the battle, I think, at that stage, Macca.
Yeah, I think he was, you see. I think that's probably what it was. He didn't have enough sort of lavish curls in the front or waves or body. But that mullet that Venison, that 80s mullet he used to carry around was spectacular.
I should also say, by the way, for younger listeners, that Steve McMahon's probably the greatest Red you've never heard of, if you haven't heard of him. I think he's the most underrated Liverpool player ever. I've always thought that. Well, he's so integral to that side. Absolutely integral.
100%. Do you know what sums up Steve McMahon? I think it's in the 5-0. Do you know the one that the ball's nearly going out on the right-hand side?
Oh, that's Arsenal. Arsenal in 87. January 87, yeah.
Was that Arsenal? Oh, and he basically kills it and he drives on. That it was 88. I know it was that season, but oh man, I mean, there's something about that lad. He's just, you're right. He was incredibly important to it, and we've been lucky to have a couple of interviews with him for Anfield Index, and and that thing about Steve is he's exactly as you'd imagine he would be. He literally does not want to hear any bullshit. He doesn't suffer fools.
No.
He's exactly as he played, that kind of way, which I really like, actually, I have to say. I did a show with himself and Jan once, and I could see how things could go sideways with Steve if you weren't behaving yourself. So so I always appreciate that in a footballer.
I
I've got a
don't
couple of
think
questions.
I don't think he's a man who's had any misgivings about his own opinions.
No, I doubt that very much. I doubt that very much. I've got a couple of questions to kind of bring it to a conclusion, because I do want to ask you what happened in the aftermath for you. So, like, what did that look like? Because obviously, like we've already tried to highlight for folks, there's still 2 league games to be played. So, now, by the way, this is also the 80s where lads were on the pints anyway, all the time. And it's the players I'm talking about, by the way, in case the listeners
I did my share that night. Remember that?
This is what I'm wondering. What did you stay in that London, or did you go home, or what did you
I was
do?
living there, so I've moved down.
Oh, you had? Okay,
I
didn't realise you were there.
At uni, I was living at Halls at that point. We went to a place called the Top Bar at the poly I went to. Although, if you're listening and you work in my HR department, university, not polytechnic. I sort of got more than moderately on it. The games later in the week, because they were like 3. Was it Tuesday and Friday? I remember the day after the game was Friday.
Yeah.
And you think, 5-1. If is it Leroy Rossini, I think, scores for West Ham? If he doesn't score that, we win the league. We win the double. We possibly put an end to Arsenal. That's how tight it was. It's the tightest league finish ever.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think if that happened today, there'd be conspiracy about they're making Liverpool play late games. No one wanted to play. No one wanted to play at all. Aldridge was going to walk away from the game completely after Hillsborough. And you can completely justify why. No one had a problem with that. In fact, it was the game that they all went up to Celtic and they played a pre-season friendly, and they all felt a bit better about playing again. Because they thought, this is our job. This is what we do. And don't forget, these lads were still going to funerals that week as well. They went to every funeral. There's a player at every funeral. I think I'm right in saying that. And Kenny was at most of them. And we relegated West Ham. I think they might have been down already, actually, I'm not sure. But and then it's all set up for Arsenal. I remember my dad was a Blue. And I remember he said to me, if Liverpool had to win 2-0, it would have finished 4-0. But they didn't know what to do against Arsenal when they could have afforded to lose a goal. Because Liverpool, they're not like that.
Well, there was even some bizarre criticism of Johnny Barnes losing possession of the ball when we were 1-0 up, and
it gets 15 ricochets off Michael Thomas, doesn't it? It's just
exactly. And I mean, but it's just look, that season, obviously 38 games played. Both Liverpool and Arsenal win 22. Both of them draw 10. Both of them lose 6. Liverpool score 65. Arsenal score 73. We only concede 28. They concede 36. They win on it could not have been tighter, as you said. And to be fair, that was an emergent and impressive Arsenal side, so you can kind of suck it up a little bit. But the double went, and it just felt kind of wrong, and it was incredibly deflating and flat end to a very, very difficult season, and just from a football perspective. Never mind all the humanity and the heft of that people were carrying around. So, look, man, it's a one-off game, and like I say, I just want to reiterate. For me, when people ask me, what trophy is the most important to you, that's right up there. It's right up there for me. It meant everything. It just felt like it had to be won in a way that I don't think I've experienced any other trophy. The weight of it was incredible, and you can see the relief on Dalglish's face at the end of that game. It's a little bit beyond the usual joy. It's just like, oh, thank fuck, that kind of way. So, it's a one-off. Any 89 factoids or points of interest you want to drop on the list?
Well, I'm just looking at the league table, actually. And this shows just how long ago this was. Forest finishing third. Teams relegated: Middlesbrough, West Ham, and Newcastle. Chelsea aren't even in the league.
Yeah.
Which is nuts when you think about it. Man United finished 11th, 25 points behind us. Everton finished 8th. Norwich were 4th, which is a bit surprising as well. So Norwich were going for a sort of double as well. No, they would have been way out of it by then. No, it was Norwich Everton played in the semi. It was just it was a horrible time, obviously, because of Hillsborough and the repercussions of that still aren't solved. That's that's worth saying. They got away with what they did. But those weeks, it was difficult for me because I had people at the match. Mercifully, none of them died, but 2 of them can't go to the game anymore because of that. And they got away with broken ribs. And if you listen to the fee, hello. And my sister was still at college with all my college mates because she was a year behind me, obviously, when she was at college. And I remember there was a service at the college, and she said to me, "This is I called her on a payphone again, going back again. I wonder, it might have been a phone card, I don't know." And said, "We're doing a service at the college. Do you want to come up?" Because they knew I was going to Liverpool games a lot, and I couldn't face it. I didn't go home. I didn't go home after Hillsborough. I just couldn't do it. So I rang my mum and dad every night and said, "I'm all right. I'm still safe. Blah blah blah, etc." And I've heard about so and so and what have you. And and to go through all that and then go to so many games concertinaed into such a small amount of time, and then to win the cup was great, and then Friday was just devastating again. It was just so the polarity of emotions from the 15th of April to the 26th of May, just the hardest time to go through as a Liverpool fan. It really is, and it's still being felt today. That, and I just hope that something can be done at some point to get the bastards who did it.
I think that is the most opposite note to end any show about 1989, which encompasses the saddest and most tragic element in Liverpool's history. And I want to thank Karl Coppack for walking through the 1989 FA Cup final, a 3-2 win over Everton, for this episode of Glory Days. I've been Trev Downey, and we'll speak to you soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.